folks. This is Bobby Carlton. I am the editor-in-chief and publisher of Lioness Magazine. I am also the founder of Innovation Women. So, yes, I am an entrepreneur just like you. And today I am here with Dolores Hirschmann. She is the Chief Clarity Officer at Masters in Clarity. Welcome, Dolores. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Bobby, for having me.
No, thanks for joining us. She is an internationally recognized strategist and coach. She's been a remote employee and a virtual business owner for more than 20 years. And I am super excited to have her here today because she has got so much fascinating information. So, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background and, what's your origin story? How did you get to where you are today?
Thank you. And I'll start with saying I have an accent, if you noticed. So I was born and raised in Argentina. And I say that, Bobby, because I've given speaking engagements when you get to the Q&A and you say, what questions do you have about what I just shared? And the first question is, where are you from? Where's your accent from? So just to get that out of the way, I was born and raised in Argentina. And my first language is Spanish. And I would say that yes, I wanted to be an actress, and my dad said, great, go to business school and then we can figure out what's next. So I went to business school kind of dragging my feet. I really was. And I was working, evenings as a choreographer because I loved, the arts. But I have to say that for a creative, which I am, going to business school was the best. It's almost like the cough syrup that you don't want, but it's the best thing that for you, because it allowed me to have a framework and an understanding of what is the purpose of creating and how can you make creation sustainable. Because I believe in business and enterprise, in entrepreneurship and owning my business as an outlet and vehicle for my creativity and my capacity to I always say, imagine a future that doesn't exist. And I can't think of a better vehicle to do that than owning your own business.
Awesome. So lately, you've been very involved in a new area that's helping entrepreneurs as they prepare to have their companies acquired. How did you end up focusing in on this?
So I was on the other side of the road, right? I was in 2019, I was chugging along and doing my thing. And I was introduced to someone through one of my clients who had an interest in one of my products, but not as a client. He had an interest because he saw my product as a great addition to his product stack. And that's something interesting because there's ways to create. You can start business from scratch, or you can acquire companies that can complement whatever you're doing. So in this case, this business owner wanted to expand his offering, but he could have done it from scratch, but he didn't want to. He wanted to, incorporate a solution, in this case, that was already in the marketplace, that had already had some success, that had a process and systems and all the things that a business has. And so I was a seller, if you want. I ended up not selling my whole business, but carving out this product and licensing actually to him. And we built a whole company together that went to 8 figures, and it was very successful and all that. And so and that was about 4 years of my life that I dedicated to making sure that was done right. And as I finished that, I started thinking that was a whole journey for me. There was so much that I didn't know as a seller, and that so much that I learned. And as I went into this, my husband said, every 5 years you start a new business. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of true. And lately, every 5 years, I add a new layer to my current business because I've been committed to staying in under one brand. But how that's happened is I learned so much, and I had so much fun in that process that I realized how much potential small businesses have when they prepare themselves to be acquired, to integrate another company, whether it's because the business owner wants to retire, which is many cases that's one path, or they're ready for a new idea that they no longer want to wait for. Or they just see the opportunity in the market, whatever way. So right now I am excited to working with business owners and either preparing them to exit or simply acquiring them. I belong to a group of investors. I have a investing partner, and we actually might be going into our first acquisition together this week. And so it's a fascinating space, Bobby, because as a creator, I get to contribute into different businesses and their path of creating their next level from a different place, not so much in the business, but from outside of the business.
Nice. And so you lived the journey. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the journey itself, and like, what's your big advice for preparing for the sale of a company?
So I wasn't looking for a buyer. I wasn't looking for a partner at the time. We all do our thing. It's like parenting and in business, we do what we do and we hope we're doing the best that we can. And unless we sit down with another parent or another business owner and we compare notes, we just don't know. We do our thing. So what I didn't know is that I was doing something really well at the time. I was a much smaller business than I am right now. And this particular product was just starting, but I'm equally creative as I am organized, and strategic. And so everything we do at Masters in Clarity is done with a clear documentation and process, SOP, the famous standard operating procedure. We don't even send a gift to our clients without reading an SOP. We have a way of tying a bow. That's how organized we are. And so piece of advice is when I engaged in a conversation with this person that we ended up partnering with, I was able to say, look, let me not tell you about what we do. Let's sign an NDA. So advice number one, sign an NDA so that you can be protected. And then I literally just gave him access to my SOP. And what it did is it allowed him to see that I wasn't just, waking up one morning and doing things, hoping for the best, that we had a process, that it was a process that could be used to train a team. And when you have an SOP that you can train a team, that means that you are scalable. And when you are on an exit path, anybody who is interested in acquiring you, they're not just acquiring you to stay the same. They're acquiring you so they can bring their teams, their resources, their brilliance, their network, and grow. And a company that doesn't have proper documentation and clear SOPs cannot grow or shouldn't grow because it's going to be a mess. It's not sustainable. It's not a good way of living. You won't sleep at night well. And so what I learned, Bobby, is that the way I was running my business, I didn't know this, but was ready to be acquired. And that made the negotiations so quickly because he quickly realized I had something that could be acquired. It was tangible. And because part of the negotiation was that I would be involved in the execution, he knew he could trust me as a business owner that could scale a business.
Wow. Okay. One of the things that you told me before is you actually carved out a particular product or part of the company and just sold that.
Yeah.
I have to admit, hadn't been something that previously occurred to me. So how does an entrepreneur decide that's the path they're going to take? I mean, is it a product, a part of a company, or a whole company?
Yeah. So again, in this case, I wasn't looking for it. So sometimes, things happen because but in this particular case, And it wasn't even an acquisition totally. It was a licensing. And I actually forgot about that until we decided to part ways. But which means that I still own that IP now. I didn't sell it off. It's a detail. So in this case, he wanted my product to come into his product offering. He had a brand. He has a brand. He was not interested in acquiring a new brand. He was interested in acquiring the recipe. Think of it, the recipe for a cake that he wanted to offer in his bakery. He didn't want another bakery. And so sometimes, and this is something that any of our listeners right now could think about, is it's almost like thinking one step above the way that you're offering your products. Think of it this way. Let's say that for example, you run a magazine, right? And you don't want to sell your magazine. You're happy with your magazine, but person over there wants to start a magazine and they're very interested in you. And you're like, you know what? My magazine is my magazine. It's not going anywhere. I've done it for a few years. It's, I'm loving it, but I can sell you my intellectual property and all of my processes and systems. And I will coach you so that you can start your own magazine. Now, actually, I just created a product for you, Bobby.
Nice.
You may already have it, but.
That sounds like a plan, a dangerous plan, because I need more to get involved in.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. Oh, well, you have your team. But basically, it's thinking about what you do and productizing that for someone to be able to add that under their brand. Now, when someone doesn't have a company or is looking for a new service in a new space, they will want to buy your whole brand. And that's a different conversation. And you might be ready for that. That's different. But most of you listeners right now could actually enter into an acquisition conversation without touching the brand you've been working so many years to launch. Mm-hmm. And that's something for you guys to think about.
So is there like a particular size or success level or minimum you need to be to consider this type of approach?
Not at all, because, at a minimum, you have to have a proof of concept, what's called proof of concept. In startups and in tech, it's called MVP, minimum viable product, right? If you have created a product that is serving some clients with success, then you have a proof of concept. You have people who are willing to pay and who are getting the results you promised, period. It could be 2, it could be 5, it could be 10, it could be 100. The bigger the conversation. But if you are okay, if you're looking to scale fast and increase your overall revenue for your company, finding a partner who has the traffic, and this is here the important thing is that in this case is he had thousands of subscribers and past clients who are mature and ready for this product. He had an audience that was willing and ready to buy. So he didn't want to build this from scratch. That's why our partnership was a perfect deal. He had the audience, I had the product, I had the systems, I could hire someone on the spot and train them. And so we were out in the market within 30 days of signing our agreement.
Wow. All right. So exits can be so exciting. But what if you can't imagine like selling your company or, well, let's face it, you want or you need to extract some value from it. Mm-hmm. Like, are there other options?
So let me make sure I understand.
Yeah.
So you don't really, well, this is a way of extracting value without selling.
Right.
Now, if I just choked on the water I just drank. Here's the thing. If you're not ready to sell, but you're also ready for something different, that you're not ready to stay the same. Like you no longer want to stay the way you are. Let me drink some water. So there's always, and again, it's being open to a negotiation. One thing I would say is, and I'm learning this about myself in this phase of my life, I love negotiations. I love learning about what the other person wants, getting clear of what I want, and having a conversation about it, which is really, that's what a good negotiation is. It's not about how can I get more than you and how can I win over you. A really good negotiation is one where both people can come together years later and have a meal and have a great time. And that's what I strive for. And so there's a moment in our business where we have felt a plateau, or we are tired, or as I'm talking to an owner this afternoon who has a grandchild, and he's like, I don't want to work 40 hours a week anymore. I really don't. And so there's so many ways to create a new reality for you as a business owner without giving it all up. You can partner with someone who has a complementary skill set, and you shrink your to-dos to the things you love to do. But now, instead of owning 100% of, let's say, $1 million business, you might own a 50% of a $3 million business. You're still owning the same or more. So I think it's important, Bobby, for business owners to understand that there comes a time in your business and in your life where you want to have space for other things. And so if you're not ready to sell or emotionally not ready to let go, there's partnership exit paths. There's creative deal structures that you can negotiate and say, you know what, I'm going to stay running the business for 3 years. I don't want you to pay me all the money up front. I want maybe a little bit of money up front, but I want earnout, meaning I want to be part of the success of whatever you're bringing new to my business. So I'll stay as a, let's say, owner or part-time owner, and every year I give up more equity. And so you go from 100% owner to partial owner all the way to employee. And maybe when you get to the employee part, you're like, you know what? I'm now done. You've completed the cycle. You've been paid whatever you've been paid, and you're ready to go. Or you're so happy and you stay. Because it's the other thing, Bobby, is there's a timing for the business and a timing for the person. And the emotional release of your creation is something that I would say every business owner should consider. Like, the emotional experience of exit is a whole journey. And it needs to be part of your internal conversation and part of the planning.
Wow. All right. We're going to switch gears a little bit here, because I know that you're a speaker and you've also done some work with TEDx, specifically TEDx organizing. Let's talk a little bit about that point in time in your life and your career.
So, as I say, I'm a creative, and I have moments in my life where, even that I might be very busy. I'm a mom of 4 kids. My kids are older now. Which I would have moments in my life when I'm bored, which my mom says, how can you be bored? Like, you don't even have time to brush your teeth. But I like challenges, and I like to embark in new adventures. And so this was one of those times in 2015 that there was something missing. I was doing great work. My business at the time was mostly executive coaching. I'm a licensed ICF coach. And I realized that I actually asked myself, what would I do for free all day long? And the answer to that question was, I would hang out with people with really cool ideas. And I had already been involved in the TED world, and I was a licensed TEDx organizer, although I wasn't, organizing anything at the time. And once you start down a path, you start thinking whatever you're thinking, and you're manifesting whatever you're thinking. what's your thoughts? You'll manifest whatever you think. But at the time, within weeks of that thought was like, what if I organized a TEDx? Within weeks, I got a call from someone who knew my background on TEDx. And they say, we really need a TEDx in our city. I think it could do so much towards propelling our city forward. And it's true. And they're like, I know you have the capacity to organize, you have the licenses and all that stuff. We will be your team. Tell us what to do. Like literally, that's the call I got. It were two business owners. They were partners. And I'm like, okay. And then we started looking at venues, and the biggest theater in town came to us and said, what do we need to do for you to host the TEDx on our stage? And we, by the way, we wouldn't even charge you. And I'm like, oh my God. It scared me because it's a very big venue with 1,200 seats. But we went for it, and I loved every minute of it. And so what that was for me was really, one, creating an experience for my community, which, part of it is always enriching the place I live, and challenging myself to be with these amazing speakers. One of them, our first year, a young professional woman, a scientist, right now, she lives in space. She's an astronaut. And she gave a talk at our event about the similarities between the ocean floor and Mars. And that's what she was studying. It was fascinating. You can't even make these things up. And so anyway, that was the beginning for me to really get involved into speaking, into events, and more specifically into helping brilliant people craft signature talks that engage their audience and move them forward.
All right. So speaking, TEDx, how does this play into your business journey?
So I'm in the business of professional services. We are strategists. We help our clients grow their business. And if you're in the space of professional services, probably the most effective way to grow your business, to get clients, is to speak. I don't think there's any other. I mean, if you sell shoes, yeah, sure, go do advertisement. But if you're in professional services, the fastest way to get clients is to have someone meet you doing a speaking event or a podcast or some way that they can get to know you faster and deeper in a short period of time. And so I discovered during the TEDx time that I was an organizer, how effective it was for the speakers that we place on our stages, but also because I started giving a lot more talks. They asked me as a TEDx organizer, and I was giving talks about how to speak and how to engage your audience. And my business just boomed, it doubled. It was a time where my family went through some crisis, and I was not forced, but I was asked to become the main breadwinner. And I freaked out, and it was some very hard times for us. But I was able to double my business in 30 days. And basically, and I'll give you a number. I went from $100,000 business to $200,000 business trending within the first 30 days of the year. And then I kept growing. And so speaking changes everything. And I would say nowadays, with so much digital marketing, so many places where you can find a product or a service in a digital way, speaking and hearing the perspectives of the CEO, honestly, whether you're selling software, shoes, or professional services, hearing firsthand the authentic voice of the CEO makes a huge difference in having the market respond and engage with your company.
Makes sense. I mean, we, obviously as the owner of Innovation Women as well as Lioness Magazine, I heartily believe in the power of public speaking. I admit I always kind of think back and imagine bumping into a much younger me and providing myself with some much needed advice. Of course, I don't know if I would listen to myself, but if you were talking to yourself or a younger entrepreneur, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
So definitely, I know where you were going just now. Like, how fast can you get on a stage and talk to your ideal clients? Like, speak to, like, the number one marketing strategy when you launch a business is speaking, hands down. And let me just be very clear here. We're not talking big conference, big stage. Speaking is a room of 10 potential clients in someone's living room. Speaking is an interview in a podcast, is an Instagram live. Like, anywhere you can be heard by 2 or more people, you're speaking. And so if I were to start all over, I would say, get out there and speak faster, number one. And number two, just follow your intuition, follow your gut. Like, don't entertain self-doubt. The fact that you're young and new doesn't mean that you're wrong. You'll get to learn the lessons, but the head comes second. For me right now, my intuition is first and my head comes second every time. If my gut says yes, I go for it. And then I figure it out.
So what advice, as we're kind of closing out our time today here, what advice do you have for other entrepreneurs? Maybe ones who have been in are now in the shoes that you've worn in the past.
So make sure you have documentation on your processes, because you never know when a great opportunity can come your way. And you also need it to scale. So go back to your desk, hire a VA, document your processes, create your SOPs. Number one. Number two, speak. Get out there and find a room where you can share your story and about your products and services. And number three, you have what you need. You don't need a new certification. You don't need another degree. You can go get it if you want to, but don't think that, especially if you're a woman, don't think that you need more to be validated and valued. If you know you do good work, if you have experience doing that work, then have the confidence to go and offer it.
All right. That sounds amazing. And where can folks find you if they want to follow up on this conversation?
So mastersinclarity.com/free. You're going to have a lot of resources that I put there for you to build your talk or get clear on your strategy. And I know we're sharing a special new tool that we just released this year, where I created a custom GPT to help you write your signature talk. So that's going to be also included, a special link for you to download that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Bobby.
All right, Kumari, we're adding this in just before the ending and the goodbye. And we're going in 3, 2, 1. That AI thing sounds very interesting to me. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I created a custom GPT. So I trained, in OpenAI, everybody knows about ChatGPT. This is a special link where I trained the AI in my framework. I have a 7-step framework on how to write your talk. Because here's the thing, speaking is not about pitching your products and services. Actually, far from it. It's about educating the audience in that you're an expert of. And as my mother says, you go to someone's house, you always leave them better than you find, whatever room you're in. You want to leave your audience better than you found them. What does that mean? You want to have, in the time you have with them, give them enough of a gift of knowledge or aha or insight so that they walk away having learned something. Trust me, be generous, because if you give generously from a stage, people will see that you know your expertise and then want to find out more about you and work with you.